So Pokemon games have been coming out for over 25 years at this point. That's literally a quarter of a century of Pokemon adventures, meaning that most gamers have probably played at least one Pokemon game. There's also 8 generations worth of the main series Pokemon games that have currently released or are about to be released, and in this video, I am going to be covering a fact about every single one of them. Well, I guess I'll be covering a fact about every pair of games, since that's how Pokemon likes to do things, but every individual release that has occurred within the main series of Pokemon so far, whether paired or individual, will be covered with a really cool fact in this video. So strap on in and get ready to learn some new stuff about all of your favorite Pokemon games, which is all made possible thanks to the support of today's awesome sponsor, TechMat. With Christmas nearly upon us, I'm sure the Nintendo Switch OLED is on some of your lists, or you're planning on giving one to someone else. Well, since the upgraded screen is literally the whole point of this version of the Switch, to the point where it's in the name of the system, you're going to need to protect that thing, and luckily for you, the Amfilm glass screen protector from TechMat can do just that. Designed specifically for the Switch OLED, this screen protector can be installed super easily and within 60 seconds using patented auto-alignment technology. It's also touch sensitive, so you'll still be able to use the touchscreen, ultra clear with 99.9% transparency, so you won't even be able to hardly notice that it's even there, and it's of course scratch resistant. But it's also designed to reduce fingerprint marks on the screen as well, which is a really nice touch. They're also a good deal since you can get 2 for just $16.99 on Amazon. So if you want to grab one of these for your Switch OLED, which you would definitely want to do if you haven't got a screen protector yet, you can do so with the link in my description, which will take you to that Amazon page. Once again, a big thank you to TechMat for supporting the channel, and now, on to the video. Okay, so obviously we're going to start with the originals, Pokemon Red and Blue, and Green, since Green was released instead of Blue in Japan. The fact I have for these games might not actually be something that's intentional, however, it's still really cool. So it's pretty well known that these games take place in the Kanto region, and that all of the towns are named after colors. This theme extends into the names of the games as well, as they are also all named after colors, and while the names probably just come from the Pokemon who adorn their box art, outside of Japan, the Gen 1 Pokemon games, Red, Yellow, and Blue, are actually also named after the primary colors, which is extremely fitting considering these are the very first games in the series. The outlier in this case, Pokemon Green, also fits into this too, however, as green, the color, is a mixture of yellow and blue, which is pretty symbolic of the interaction between different versions that is integral to the series, such as with trading or battling. So whether this was intentional at all or not, they hit the nail right on the head with the names of these games. Moving along, while Pokemon Yellow was a part of that last fact, it was released separately from Red and Blue, and as such, it still gets a fact of its own. What's interesting about Pokemon Yellow is that we know for certain that it wasn't planned to be a thing until a little later on, since it's based on the anime, and the anime didn't come out until over a year after Pokemon Red and Blue. So Pokemon Yellow, for all intents and purposes, was created specifically to capitalize on the popularity of the anime, as it released a little over a year after the anime premiered in September of 1998. What's even more interesting about this though is that it was actually Pokemon Gold and Silver that were intended to release in 1998 instead, originally planned for a March release of that year before they were delayed, and then, a little after that delay, Pokemon Yellow was subsequently announced. So with that timeline of events, it's entirely possible that Game Freak's desire to capitalize on the anime by creating Pokemon Yellow is at least partially responsible for the delay that Gold and Silver received, which is pretty interesting. Speaking of Gold and Silver, those are the next games we are going to cover here, and these games are who you can thank for all of the infinite amounts of Pokemon merch that we get to enjoy today. In an interview with former Nintendo president Satoru Iwata, Pokemon Company CEO Tsunekazu Ishihara spoke about how everyone at Game Freak thought that Gold and Silver would be the last Pokemon games. This is pretty well known, but what he mentions in this interview is that in order to ensure the success of Pokemon Gold and Silver as what they wanted to be the ultimate Pokemon titles and what they thought would be the last ones, Game Freak and Nintendo licensed a bunch of merchandise to go along with the games, and this was even responsible for the development of the TCG. In his own words, Ishihara said, quote, "The reason that I licensed so many products and developed things like the trading cards was basically to ensure that Pokemon Gold and Pokemon Silver were successful. I felt that this was my primary role. So at the time, I worked with the assumption that after we put out Pokemon Gold and Pokemon Silver, my work as far as Pokemon was concerned would be done." Obviously, Pokemon did not end, however, so neither did the merchandise, which is why we have all the plushies and trading cards and clothes and everything else that we have today. Pretty interesting. Our fact on Pokemon Crystal doesn't affect the entire history of Pokemon quite as much, but it's still pretty cool. The Japanese version of Pokemon Crystal specifically actually has something really cool about it that the international versions do not have. Suicune's head crest is actually printed directly on the back of the game's circuit board, which can be seen through the game's cartridge. Looking at the Hoenn games, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire have the honor of holding a very distinct accomplishment, as they are the highest selling games on the Game Boy Advance, selling over 16 million copies, and they are the only Pokemon games to ever be the highest selling game on their respective system to this point. However, that's not to say that Pokemon hasn't been absolutely dominant on every system it's released a main series game on, because it absolutely has. In fact, Pokemon games are amongst the top 5 best sellers on every single system that a main series game has released on, with the only one that is not finalized being Pokemon Sword and Shield on the Switch, but it currently sits in the number 5 spot as of right now, with over 22 million copies sold. Additionally, on the Game Boy and 3DS, Pokemon holds 3 of the top 5 best-selling spots, and on the GBA, where Ruby and Sapphire reign supreme, Pokemon also holds every single one of the top 3 best-selling games for that system, which just goes to show you how popular and dominant Pokemon truly is. One of the cool things about Pokemon Emerald is that it actually showcases a battle between Groudon and Kyogre, as the two are said to infamously engage in, only to be stopped, however, by the box art legendary itself, Rayquaza. What's even cooler about this event, though, is that it actually implies that Pokemon Ranger on the Nintendo DS is a direct sequel to Pokemon Emerald. In Ranger's post-game, Groudon and Kyogre can be found, and it's mentioned that they both look like they've been injured in a battle recently, which of course occurred in Pokemon Emerald, effectively connecting these two games together in the Pokemon timeline, which is really cool. Next, we come to our first remakes in the series, Fire Red and Leaf Green. However, I don't know if I can actually call them remakes, because around the time of the game's release, Pokemon Company CEO Tsunekazu Ishihara actually made some interesting comments about them and declared that these games weren't remakes. In an interview with IGN, he said, quote, "We don't feel that this is a remake at all. We feel that this is a new game, with wireless technology. The reason why they are red and green is that they were the most popular games in the Pokemon series, and we wanted to introduce the concept again for the GBA. And it's been 8 years since Red and Blue, so our target audience changes in that time, and the audience will see Pikachu or Charizard as new characters." So, take that for what it's worth, I guess. But another cool thing about these games as well is that in the credits, you see all 3 Kanto starters, as well as Pikachu, appear with their own special animations. But what's actually happening here is that each Pokemon is going from its in-game sprite to a special sprite that matches the pose that these Pokemon took on the Japanese box art of their respective Gen 1 games, making for a very nice reference. Now we're on to Gen 4 with Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. These games were officially announced on October 7th of 2004. While they didn't end up releasing until 2006, they were announced less than 1 month after Pokemon Emerald's release in Japan in September of that same year, and well before Emerald's release in other countries. Imagine a brand new generation of Pokemon being announced just a few weeks after the latest games in the series just came out, or even several months before they even came out at all. That seems absolutely inconceivable in today's day and age, but it was apparently the reality back in Generation 3. When it comes to Pokemon Platinum, it accidentally leaked the existence of a new Pokemon before it was ever officially confirmed. Pokemon Platinum first released in September of 2008, and according to Bulbapedia, the instruction manual included with the Japanese version of the game claims that there are 493 Pokemon in the game available to discover. This is true since as of Gen 4 there are 493 Pokemon, however this is before Arceus, who is Pokemon number 493, was officially revealed, meaning that Game Freak accidentally let it slip that there was one more Pokemon waiting in the wings for these games that hadn't yet been officially shown off. After Pokemon Platinum came Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, remakes of Gen 2's Gold and Silver. One of the reasons why these games are seen by many as the best Pokemon games ever is because they introduced the mechanic of following Pokemon, which quickly became a fan favorite. These games were the first to have a Pokemon following you mechanic for every single Pokemon, and the first since Pokemon Yellow to include it in the game, which is why it's so interesting that Heart Gold and Soul Silver actually released on the same exact day as Pokemon Yellow, that being September 12th. Now we've come to Gen 5 with Pokemon Black and White, and one of the most intriguing things about these games is that in some pre-release material for them that was spotted in the United Kingdom, Unova was actually known as Alios instead. This implies that this was the name for Unova until most likely very late into development, since it made its way onto a piece of pre-release material. Breaking down the name, Alios also reveals some interesting clues too, as the Eos at the end of the name is also the name of the Greek goddess of the dawn, which could symbolize that these games are the start of a new era. The all part of the name could have possibly referred to how all the content in these games, particularly the Pokemon, was all new. And since the idea of a new beginning with these games was such a big emphasis, it's possible that Unova's original name, Alios, was originally supposed to emphasize this fact as well. Following Black and White 2 of course come next, and these games are unique because they were the first time that something different happened with the follow-up release to a generation's first set of games. There were 2 games instead of just 1, like with Platinum and Emerald, and these games were sequels. According to another interview with former Nintendo president Satoru Iwata, Junichi Masuda stated that part of the reason why they decided to release 2 versions for Black and White 2 is because Game Freak had originally wanted to include the key system that appears in those games, aka the difficulty setting, in Pokemon Black and White, but they weren't able to, so they decided to make Black and White 2 as 2 separate versions in order to include that feature in the game. They also cite the general desire to do something that fans didn't expect with these games as another reason why they went with 2 versions and a sequel approach. Now we've reached Generation 6, and of course that starts with Pokemon X and Y. When it comes to Pokemon X specifically, this isn't the first time that something in Pokemon had the title of Pokemon X, and it's not even the second time either. There was also a game known as Pokemon X that was reportedly going to be released back in April of 2000. This was very likely just the codename for Pokemon Crystal, however, as the game was mentioned to have support for mobile phones, which Crystal had in Japan, and Crystal also released around the same time as Pokemon X was purported to. On top of that though, Lugia's codename was also Pokemon X prior to its formal introduction, so Pokemon X isn't exactly original in the name department, even though it might seem like it. The other set of games that released in Generation 6 were Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and these definitely paid homage to their predecessors, right down to their release date in fact. Everywhere except Europe, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire were released on the 12th anniversary of the original Ruby and Sapphire in Japan, and also on the 12th anniversary of the premiere of the Hoenn arc of the anime, both of which released on November 21st, just like ORAS. Entering into the 7th generation, Pokemon Sun and Moon were released on the 20th anniversary of the franchise, and did a lot of things to harken back to the starting point of the series, and this almost included an entirely different male protagonist for the games than the one that we actually got. In a recent leak of some of Sun and Moon's beta materials, it was revealed that a different male protagonist, who strongly resembles Red from Pokemon Red and Blue, was originally planned for the games. This character was even featured in the reveal for Sun and Moon in some of its early concept art that appeared in the reveal trailer. In the final games, the protagonist does move to Alola from Kanto, so what would the story have been for this cut character? Would he have actually been related to Red in some way? We do know that an older version of Red appears in these games as well, and while it's hard to say if any connection would have been present, it certainly is really interesting to think about. When looking at Sun and Moon's follow-ups, Ultra Sun and Moon, these games were practically just one big hint to the future of Pokemon, with tons of hints at future titles hidden all throughout them. Before you even started the game, there was a very conveniently placed "Let's go" phrase on the back of the game's box art, which can only be described as a hint considering the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee games came out just a year after the Ultra games. There's also a multitude of hints to Sword and Shield in Ultra Sun and Moon as well, including a reference to the Power Spots, which very fittingly comes from the Tourist Trainer class, implying that this character is in fact from Galar herself, and they even included a poster of Gigantamax Toxtricity in the game too. Literally just put it straight into the games a whole generation early, and none of us even knew it until after the fact. Absolutely wild. This is also a good example of why you should always be on the lookout for hints to future games while playing Pokemon, so keep your eyes peeled while playing Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl and Legends Arceus. Now we come to the surprise games of Generation 7, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and these games did some pretty cool stuff with their version-exclusive Pokemon. In Let's Go Pikachu, Ekans, Coughing, and Meowth cannot be found in the wild, a reference to these, of course, being the 3 signature Pokemon of Team Rocket, and the fact that just like its predecessor, Pokemon Yellow, Let's Go Pikachu is vaguely based on the original season of the Pokemon anime. Additionally, in Let's Go Pikachu, you can also find Primeape and Muck as version exclusives, which is another anime reference since these two were Pokemon that Ash owned in that original season. Next up, we have finally reached Generation 8, the current Pokemon generation as of this video's creation. Starting of course with Sword and Shield, there's an interesting quirk going on with these games' setting, which is of course the Galar region. being based on the UK, Galar is sort of like a counterpart to the US-based Unova region, and something funny that connects the two is the names of their various towns. The names of Galar's towns all center around sports terminologies, and while the UK is very involved in sports, so this makes sense, it arguably would be even more fitting in the Unova region, since it is based on the United States, which arguably has an even bigger focus on sports and is one of, if not the biggest, sport-loving country in the world. Likewise, Unova's towns are instead named after different types of clouds, which would definitely fit far better in Galar since the UK is known for being cloudy and rainy much of the time. Now we enter into Supercurrent territory with Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, which aren't even out at the time of this video's creation, but nevertheless, I still have a cool fact to share. As you may have noticed, BDSP uses a rather unique art style, and this includes the actual artwork itself that was produced for the game. The cool thing about this artwork though is that it's all directly based on the original sprites of these same characters and Pokemon that come from the original Diamond and Pearl. And finally, we come to Pokemon Legends Arceus, which is not out when I'm writing this and shouldn't be out by the time this video goes up either, but of course we still have something cool to share. Interestingly, Pokemon Legends Arceus is the first and so far the only main series Pokemon game that uses the English Pokemon logo in its Japanese logo, and the only thing that's different between the two is of course that Arceus is written in Japanese. Prior to this, all the Japanese logos of the various Pokemon games were significantly different to the English ones and didn't use the English logo as I mentioned. So it'll be interesting to see if this starts to become a regular thing at all for the Japanese logos in the future as more games are released. And that, my friends, was a fact about every main series Pokemon game that is currently released. Which game is your favorite, and which fact did you find the most interesting? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. You can also check out my Pokemon remixes on Spotify to further support the channel if you would like, which is greatly appreciated. And with that said, I'll be back with another video very soon. Until then, as always, I love you all, thanks for watching, and I will smell you guys later.